Hello, my name is James Barbush of Barbush Enterprises, founder of Harrisburg Biz Leaders. At Harrisburg Biz Leaders, our focus is to build people into the leaders they are destined to be. And in doing that, we talk about leadership topics. Leadership topics that involve people. It might be you as an employer, you as an individual, or it might also be your employees. It's anybody. So Harrisburg Biz Leaders is for anybody who wants to improve their leadership skills. It's a place where we share. It's not just about someone talking. It's about leaders getting together and sharing what they've learned over the years. And that's why I'm here today with Barry Schoch, the Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. I've known Barry since 1982 when he started as an engineer out of Penn State. We lost contact in the late 80s till recently when he was nominated for the position of Secretary of Transportation. And he did a 90-minute session for Harrisburg University at a project management forum, 90 minutes of fantastic leadership discussion. So at that point I asked Barry, would you do a video interview for us so that we could have some excellent content to put on the Harrisburg Biz Leaders website? And he agreed. That's what I love about this guy. He is available. So we're here with Barry, and Barry is a native of Du Bois. He grew up in Delaware. His family moved to Adams County when his father was appointed superintendent of Upper Adams County School District. 1978 grad of Biglerville High School, 1982 grad of Penn State University, degree in civil engineering. I also graduated from there. Licensed professional engineer. During his Penn State years, he served 2 summers for the Delaware Department of Transportation. From 82 to 95, he worked for 2 engineering consultants. The first venture being in a design area, and the second venture being as a vice president, where he grew that operation when he joined in 1995 McCormick Taylor and Associates, where he was also vice president and grew that operation. So as a young man, Barry was in high leadership positions. He's married, lives in Camp Hill, and is the father of 2 twins that are under 2 years. He can tell you what their names are and how old they are. In January 2011, he was appointed as Secretary of Transportation. Barry has 30 years of experience in the field of engineering. And for 15 years with McCormick Taylor, he worked on some very significant projects in concept planning, financial strategies, and project designs. Projects included Monfayette Expressway in southwest PA, Pennsylvania Turnpike interchange with I-95, something called the Corridor O, which was Port Matilda to Woodland. I did a transportation study, Interstate 83 master plan, on and on. These were significant projects that I believe helped set him up for the positions he's in today. Key roles in improving PADOT's approach to context-sensitive design and training for environmental quality efforts. They also worked on some experimental type things, which the federal government was funding, and they're not funding at this time, maglev projects. But it shows you the caliber, the quality of project, the concept of a maglev project that the government was thinking about. They're not doing right now, but he worked on those. President of the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, Consulting Engineers Councils, and other engineering aspects. So with that, I introduce you to Barry Schoch. He's a friend of mine. He's a very personable individual. I've heard him speak several times now as Secretary of Transportation. And I'm very pleased to have him here today to interview on leadership topics with Harrisburg Biz Leaders. So for my first question, I'd like to ask Barry, as a young person, whether it was as a child, as a teenager, or in your college years, was there something that you can point to, something that you can recognize, maybe a significant event that you felt maybe you were a little bit different than some others and you were going to do some great things?
I think I got told I was different than others by the others, all the way along. But, I think that for me, what made you aspire to perhaps want to be in a leadership role? One, you mentioned my dad. He pursued his career from a teacher to vice principal to superintendent. He didn't stop chasing the career goal of saying, I want to further myself educationally. apply that to my career and use to the full extent of my ability to express my own personal views and experience into schools and further his career. And that sort of gave me an example of don't stop trying to be better. Don't stop pursuing higher positions within leadership of your chosen profession. So I think at the family level, I had my dad as a great role model. But the other part for me, and growing up, as you know, I was very involved in athletics. And I think a lot of kids, I wasn't good enough to play at college level or play professionally. But you learn how to compete. You learn what it's like to be on a team. And sometimes in one sport, you might be the best in that sport and be the leader. And then you switch sports and you're not the best at that, so you're just one of the teams. So you learn how to fit in organizationally. You learn how to fulfill your role in that team. And then there's a way to be a leader, whether you're the star of the team or whether you're one in practice who makes sure everybody's oriented the right way and doing the drills correctly. And so I think athletics had a big role for me in both teaching me how to compete and compete in a way that everyone feels good about the competition, whether you win or lose. And compete in a way to say, force yourself, challenge yourself to get better. And don't ever think that you're not going to get better. And I think the combination of seeing, my dad in his career and then obviously being an educator, he had a big influence on us competing educationally, meaning be the best you can educationally. So I think those things, I know there's one event, just a series of events of saying, how do you challenge yourself to get better? And at any interest. I mean, I started playing music in those days. I still play in a band. You just are always saying, how do I improve at something in my life to get a little better?
A big thing you mentioned there was lifelong learning. We are never done learning. I will second that. I am in my 60s, and I am not going to quit learning. I am not going to quit.
Good for you, because if you quit, if you say I've learned everything, then I don't know where you go from there. But to me, every day I walk in this building, I learn something new about this agency, about the industry, about the things that affect our industry that shapes my decisions going forward about what we're going to do as an agency or what I'm going to do in my role within this agency or this industry, which I look at it as, I've always looked at it, whether I was in the private sector or now in the public sector. This is my industry, and I want to be a leader in the industry. Now, I'm currently serving as secretary, but I felt at McCormick Taylor as a vice president there that I could still be an influence and a leader in the industry. And I look at our private and public partners in this industry as it's one industry, and within the industry a lot of leadership, a lot of roles for people to take on responsibility. And for me, you learn from everybody involved, and then you apply that going forward, just like you said. You better not stop trying.
Was there ever a time that you can remember where somebody might have just said, Barry, you're just full of yourself. You're not going to make it?
I don't know that I ever said I wanted to make anything for somebody to say, you're not going to make that. I mean, I think it wasn't as though I set out to be Secretary of Transportation or set out to be a vice president. I think in a lot of ways, leadership is something that if you're a good leader and you're working hard at trying to be a good leader for your organization, you get recognized with titles and responsibility. If you set out and say, I want to be X, you may not achieve that, and somebody might say you're not capable of doing it. If you simply go about your job and do it well and get involved in whatever it is you do for a living, whatever you might do out there, if you get involved in it and show people that you care about them, you care about the industry, eventually the titles and the positions will come. And so I never really got told you weren't going to achieve something, because I'm not sure I ever told anybody I want to be secretary. I didn't know that I was going to be a Secretary of Transportation. It wasn't a goal for me. I never said I want to be a vice president. Those things kind of happened. What I said to everyone I think that I was ever involved with was, I want the industry and my role within the industry to continually get better.
Well, you're on that topic. What happened when you were nominated, when you were invited? Was it just, how did that go? Was that stunning to you, or surprising?
This wasn't the first time that I'd been asked whether I had an interest, but this time it was a little more serious. And frankly, it was a previous secretary, Brad Mallory, who called me and said, would you be interested? And after I said no about 3 or 4 times, I liked my role at McCormick Taylor. I liked that role. I liked the company. I liked the organization. I liked the projects I was working on. They were challenging. I worked in multiple states, which is interesting. And as you said from my experience profile, I worked on different modes, different types of transportation, which I found very interesting. But when I sat down and talked to Brad about his experience as secretary and the opportunity it presents, and thought about the opportunity to come in and in essence have a leadership role for the entire industry, not just my firm, eventually it seemed like the right thing to do.
Yes.
And then after I interviewed with Governor Corbett and we discussed what he wanted to achieve and found that we were on the same page, it became an easy decision.
Okay, awesome. Let's talk about employees a little bit. You had worked in the private sector for 28, 30 years, and now suddenly you're in the public sector. You worked with a lot of government projects. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you view PennDOT employees, how you relate to PennDOT employees. Has that view changed from when you used to work in the public sector, now you're working, private sector, now you're working in the public?
Well, I don't know if it's changed. You know, as you say, I was a consultant to this agency for 28 years. So a great deal of the people who work here, I had worked with on projects side by side for years. So I knew a lot of the people in the agency. I knew what their role was. And I had a high degree of respect and admiration for the agency and the people who worked here throughout my entire private career. Coming in as secretary, I think what any leader of an organization immediately thinks, these are my employees now. All right, they're not coworkers, they're not colleagues anymore. They're not clients, whatever you want to call, you know, the individuals you work with from the perspective that you're looking at. I think for me, all of a sudden it became, these are my 11,700 employees, and I'm responsible for them. I'm responsible for them, their careers, and their families. And no matter where I've worked, I've always felt that if I'm the one who employs you, I take on that responsibility for your career. And to me, that's as important as anything else you're trying to achieve, is that you have to help people achieve their career goals. And so for me, coming to PennDOT, I had to learn some aspects of the business that I hadn't worked with before, like maintenance and safety administration, and understand what they do, and then understand what their goals and objectives were to try to help them achieve it. They're great people. They work hard. They, you know, we all take for granted that the snow's cleared, and that the roadways, when a flood event or a storm occurs, that they're reopened quickly. And it doesn't happen without a heck of a lot of training, preparation, communication, and folks working. We had people in the floods last September who lost their homes personally and were still out inspecting bridges.
Wow.
If that doesn't tell you about the commitment of these professionals, I don't know what else would. I mean, I was just flabbergasted by the fact that so many people in the Northeast region had personal losses and yet were still at work doing their job.
That's good information, because there's so much talk about the state worker, and it's a lot of negative talk, but what you brought forth is a lot of positive talk. And I know I just came across the article for the PennDOT Star of Excellence Award winners, 30-some people that you personally recognized. Tell us about PennDOT employees from the perspective of what kind of training does PennDOT provide? What kind of, not just from technical aspect, from a people aspect, a leadership aspect, what do you think people should do for themselves? Maybe, you know, sometimes their employer can't provide training because maybe the budget was cut, but what do you think about training for staff as well as people getting their own training? Well,
I think there's two different aspects. We're in a technical field, okay? You're an engineer, I'm an engineer. So there's technical training for one, which is certainly a requirement and relevant to getting people both on-the-job training and then organized outside training to make sure they're technically proficient. As you well know, from when you and I were working together, we used to roll plans out at drafting tables and look at them, right? I mean, you were the bridge engineer, I was the highway and hydraulic engineer. We actually sat around the table and looked at plans. Well, today they're done online.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of technology changes, materials change, and we have to keep our folks current. That's technical training. On the leadership side, we emphasize heavily here training for communications, which to me, I know we'll talk about this probably, but to me, a major component of leadership is communication, both a vision and how to communicate with your staff. So communication is an emphasis, and then we also have a leadership academy that we put people through and challenge them to look beyond what they do for a living and look at things that affect our entire agency, to give them some exposure and experience of what it means to lead by getting out of the area of your technical capability and studying things that are going to affect the entire agency. But beyond that, as you mentioned, I think we ask employees there are limits to our funds. There's a limit to any private company out there. when difficult times like this occur, one of the things that frequently gets cut might be training budgets. So employees have to, on their own, look at things through professional societies and other avenues to gain experience in leadership in their industry. And I think for me, throughout my career, I was fortunate my employers provided some of that, but I spent a lot of time both on the job and outside kind of watching what other people did, learning by example from seeing leaders that I wanted to emulate, or perhaps ones that I didn't want to emulate, for things that I thought were not good leadership skills. And then, looking for opportunities outside of work to pick up my own training, if you will.
A president we once worked for, I'll never forget the statement. He said to us, everybody's a marketer. That was 30 plus years ago he said that. I never forgot it. Because in a company, everybody's a marketer. Do you apply that kind of a concept here as far as getting a message out? That what do you encourage employees to say to the public or just anybody they meet about?
Well, I tell them they represent the agency, they represent me, and they represent the industry. And they should be proud to talk about what we do. They should be proud to talk about what we're changing for the benefit of the public and to reduce our costs, improve our products, improve the efficiency of what we're doing. They should be proud of that and communicate it. And beyond that, one of the things that we instituted here when I started was a concept called IdeaLink, which is a web-based tool for people to submit ideas. Now, everyone probably has suggestion boxes and other things like that to say, give us a suggestion. To me, I wanted them to know that I think highly of their ability, no matter what they do in this organization, and I think highly of the importance of that position. I tell everyone all the time, like, I have a role here and you have a role here. Mine is no more or less important than yours. And each one of us is responsible to move the agency forward. I want you to constantly be thinking about what you're doing and what we could do better. And then tell me if there's something you think we should change. And send it in through IdeaLink. The idea will be analyzed. It'll come to me. I'll personally review it and then let you know whether we're going to implement it or not. And just in the year we've had over 800 suggestions, of which we've implemented 250. And I'd say of the ones that are reviewed, of the 250 we've implemented, that's 250 out of 275. I mean, that means these are highly quality ideas. People are thinking about this before they send them in. And to me, that sends a message to the employees that I care about their thoughts. I care about, I want them to care about what they're doing every day, not just come to work and do what they did yesterday, but think about how could I do it better? Advance the organization, advance the industry.
So you must be reviewing some of those while you're bottle feeding twins. I mean, how do you say you personally look at every one of those?
I do.
And then do you assign people to review them? Or?
They get reviewed and then they come to me with the review. But I think there's, if you're going to ask people to put the idea to you, you should be willing to carve the time out of your schedule to review it for them. And I think as a leader of a large organization like this, I mean, you and I, the company you referred to, the president that spoke to us, he came around and said good morning to us every day,
yes,
which made an impression on me.
That was excellent.
But that was a 25 or 30 person company. This is 11,700 people across the entire state. I can't go around and say good morning to everyone, nor can I have a conversation even with the group of them. I try to get around and visit with the offices and bureaus at least once a year. But if I'm here for 8 years, there'll be 10,000 people I might not meet. So, what the IdeaLink does, one, is it tells them I'm interested in what they're doing. Secondly, by reviewing it, I was just telling somebody this today, is that it gives me a chance to know that what they're dealing with and what they think could be done differently in every aspect of the business. So it helps me to learn about what they're doing out there in the field. People that I may never meet, I'll know their names because I saw the idea they submitted to me. And whether we implement it or not, they took the time to tell me something that they thought could be done better. And it helps me to learn about what's happening on a daily basis in the organization. And I think it creates a culture of leadership in that we're asking everyone to think about how do you advance the organization. And I think for any organization to be successful, you need that culture of saying, how do we continually get better? And out of that will come your leaders.
Excellent. And in my view, that is desperately needed in leadership. I got to say that. That's the type of leadership we need. You also mentioned that I know that you do a lot of your own emails. It's like, talk about how you communicate with your people and why you might send your own emails to people.
Well, again, for the president of the company, I talked, even in my prior firm, we were 350 people. I probably knew on a first name basis, even though they were scattered geographically around the Mid-Atlantic region, I probably knew 200 at least, maybe 250. Here, I can't talk to everyone every day. If I could, I would. I think there's nothing more effective for a leader than to communicate with their staff and exchange ideas. What am I working on that might affect them? What are they working on that should shape what I'm spending my time on? It's hard to do that with this big of an organization. So for me, what I think is very important is for me to communicate to them where I think we're heading and what things I think might affect us and therefore affect them. And I do that through sitting down periodically and sending emails. In today's technology, I can do that. So I send emails. I write them myself because I want them to know that it came from me. It wasn't someone preparing a speech for me or preparing comments, but it's something I thought that was important to tell them. I would tell them in person if I could. And I do frequently. When I get around the state, I'll tell them everything I know about what's happening and where we're going, and I take questions from them about anything they want to talk about. And then because I can't see all 11,700 of them, I'd say 4 or 5 times a year, maybe more, I'll sit down when I think it's significant enough and type out an email. Sometimes it's simply a holiday greeting, which then sometimes it's like after the floods, a heartfelt thanks for what those folks did and recognition for the people who sacrificed maybe things they should have been doing at home to take care of our responsibilities, and letting them know that I know about it and I care about it. So to me, it's just something that I don't think anything would be more important than communicating with everyone you work with. And for the role that I have here, again, not that I think this is any more important than the roles of the people that you see walking through this room, I need to communicate to them the vision of where we're going, what I think we need to do to get there, and if I don't, then how on earth can they support what I'm doing?
That's right. That's excellent. That's huge, because I once worked for somebody that didn't do that, and we were lost. We had no vision. We didn't know what the vision of the organization was, and then that person moved on and another person came in. He communicated with us, told us what was going on. He had an open door policy. He did answer his own emails, and I sent him an email once and he answered it in 3 minutes. This guy has a lot to do. You kind of wonder how they balance that time, but it was important for me to hear direct from him. Let's talk about leading the public a bit.